Did you know that in just the last couple of years, the FBI has seen a more than 200% increase in alerts related to online child predators? It's not a typo. From around 100 alerts in 2018 to over 300 just a year later, and the numbers have only climbed since. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. You see them on their tablets, their phones, and you feel a knot in your stomach because you don't fully understand that world. That's the fear they count on. The digital world is the perfect hunting ground. It's a sprawling, anonymous city with a billion unlocked doors, and predators can blend in with the crowd, looking for the one that opens just for them. But here's the thing about a predator. Whether they're in a dark alley or behind a glowing screen, they have a signature. They have tells. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the BAU, has spent decades learning to read those signatures in the real world. Now, they've taken that playbook and adapted it for the digital battlefield. It's a new kind of kryptonite for a new kind of monster. Today, I'm not just going to give you statistics that scare you. I'm going to pull back the curtain on how these investigations actually work. We'll look at the psychology of the predator, the digital forensics that corner them, and the undercover stings that put them in cuffs. More importantly, I'm going to show you the warning signs, the patterns that you can learn to spot. This isn't about fear, it's about knowledge. Fear paralyzes you. Knowledge arms you. Let's talk about the predator's mindset. Where do they hunt? Everywhere. Social media, online gaming platforms like Roblox, which has nearly 50 million users, most of them kids between 9 and 13, and especially encrypted apps where they think no one can watch. They aren't looking for a specific type of person so much as a specific type of need. Loneliness, insecurity, a desire to be seen or heard. These are the vulnerabilities they exploit. I consulted on a case once, a woman in her late 70s named Margaret, a widow. Her kids were grown, living across the country. Her main social outlet was a Facebook group for classic film fans. In comes a man, David. He's charming, attentive, shares her love for Hitchcock. He sends her messages every morning. He remembers the name of her cat. He love bombs her, overwhelming her with affection and attention. She felt seen for the first time in a decade. That feeling is a powerful drug. From a psychological standpoint, this is a textbook manipulation of the brain's reward system. Every flattering message from David was a little hit of dopamine for Margaret. He was conditioning her, building a dependency. She started checking her phone constantly, waiting for that next hit. The predator's goal is to become the primary source of their target's self-worth. Think about it in a simpler context. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit, like eating junk food? You know it's bad for you, but the craving, the immediate gratification, is hard to resist. A predator creates that same dynamic, but with emotional validation. They become the cookie you can't stop reaching for. The practical takeaway here is to be wary of intensity. Healthy relationships, online or off, have a natural pace. They ebb and flow. A predator's attention is a fire hose. It's constant, overwhelming, and designed to drown out everything else. So, let me ask you, have you ever felt that someone online was becoming the center of your world, a little too quickly? Have you noticed a friend or family member suddenly obsessed with a new online acquaintance who seems just a little too perfect? That feeling, that little alarm bell in your gut telling you something is off, is your most reliable security system. Don't ignore it. Now let's get into how the professionals track these ghosts in the machine. When the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit gets a case, they're not just looking for an IP address. They're building a psychological profile from digital dust. Every comment, every choice of emoji, every login time, it's all part of the signature. We used to do this with letters sent to the press with crime scene staging. Now we do it with metadata and chat logs. It's the same principle. Behavior reflects personality. You can't hide who you are, not entirely. Your digital habits betray you. A person who exclusively uses overly formal language in a casual gaming chat might be masking insecurity or trying to establish intellectual dominance. Someone who posts at 3 a.m. consistently might be unemployed, or an insomniac, or living in a different time zone. Each detail is a breadcrumb. I want to introduce you to a concept I call the digital mask. Most people think anonymity is just about hiding your real name. For a predator, it's far more sophisticated. It's not about becoming invisible. It's about crafting a perfected identity. They don't just create a fake person. They create a bespoke psychological weapon designed specifically for their target. If they've identified a target who feels neglected, the digital mask is attentive and validating. If the target is insecure about their intelligence, the mask is a university professor who is impressed by their mind. It's a custom-made key for a specific emotional lock. This is why these predators can seem so impossibly perfect to their victims. They literally are. They're a fantasy built from the victim's own declared needs and weaknesses. I remember a case years ago. We had nothing but a series of forum posts from our suspect. No name, no location. Just text. But we broke it down. He used obscure, technical jargon related to civil engineering. That narrowed his profession. He consistently misspelled a certain set of words, a pattern common to native German speakers writing in English. And his posts, which were aggressive and domineering, always appeared between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That suggested a rigid work schedule with a predictable break. He was also obsessed with correcting others' grammar. This is not just being a stickler, it's a classic tell for someone with deep-seated feelings of inferiority, who compensates by asserting intellectual superiority in low-stakes environments. From just those digital breadcrumbs, we built a profile. A German-born, college-educated engineer, likely in his 40s or 50s, working in the eastern U.S., with a narcissistic personality and a fragile ego. It took months, but when we finally identified him, the profile was dead on. From a psychological perspective, this is rooted in something called linguistic forensics. The words you choose, your sentence structure, your punctuation habits, they are as unique as your fingerprints. You can try to change them, but your baseline patterns will always bleed through under stress or over time. It's an unconscious reflection of your cognitive processes. Have you ever noticed how you can tell who's texting you just from their style, even without seeing their name? That's a simplified version of what the BAU does. They're just doing it on a much deeper, more systematic level. Think about your own online presence for a moment. What story do your emails, your social media posts, and your comments tell about you? Is it an accurate reflection, or is it a carefully curated mask? There's no judgment in that question. We all curate our image, but understanding that process is the first step to seeing it in others, especially when their mask is designed not to impress, but to deceive. Once you have a profile, you need evidence. In my day, that meant finding a weapon, a letter, a physical clue. Today, the crime scene is a hard drive, and the smoking gun is often a string of ones and zeros that the suspect thought they had erased forever. This is the world of digital forensics, and it's where the predator's sense of security completely evaporates. They believe that hitting delete makes something disappear. It doesn't. It just tells the computer that the space is available to be overwritten. Until it is, that data is recoverable. And the FBI has tools that can pull back ghosts from a machine you wouldn't believe. Let me tell you about a case involving a financial predator who was grooming a retired gentleman. We'll call him Arthur, out of his life savings. The suspect was smart. He used encrypted apps and coached Arthur to delete their conversations every night. On the surface, there was no record. The suspect felt untouchable. But he made one mistake. He sent Arthur a photo of a supposed investment property, and Arthur saved it to his phone. That one photo was our way in. The forensic team didn't just recover the image, they recovered the image's metadata. This is the data about the data. When it was created, with what kind of camera, and in some cases, the GPS coordinates of where it was taken. The photo of a supposed mansion in Florida had metadata showing it was taken 2 years prior on a cheap Android phone in a completely different state. That was the first thread we pulled. From there, we used a technique called optical character recognition, or OCR, on the phone's memory fragments. OCR can scan for and reconstruct text from images or deleted files. We started finding remnants of the deleted chats, not whole conversations, but words and phrases. Words like wire transfer, secret, don't tell your kids. It was like reassembling a shredded document, piece by painstaking piece. The predator's careful plan was unraveled by the digital trash he thought he'd taken out. The new frontier in this is AI. The Bureau is using AI-powered systems that can analyze a conversation with 99.9% accuracy to flag manipulative emotional cues. Think about that. The AI isn't just reading words, it's understanding intent. Psychologically, this works by tracking what's called emotional valence in language. A healthy conversation has a natural give and take. In a grooming conversation, the AI can detect a clear, disturbing pattern. The predator's messages will show a steady, calculated increase in language associated with control, affection, and urgency. Simultaneously, the victim's messages will show a measurable decline in words associated with confidence and an increase in words tied to confusion and anxiety. The AI can literally create a graph that plots the predator's rising confidence against the victim is decaying emotional state. It's a visual map of psychological subjugation. It's chilling, but it provides undeniable evidence of a predator's deliberate, systematic process of breaking someone down. For most of us, this level of technology is out of reach, but you can apply the basic principle. Go back and read an old email or text conversation with someone. Don't just read the words, look for the emotional pattern. Who holds the power in the conversation? Is the language balanced? Is one person constantly reassuring, flattering, or pressuring, while the other is constantly apologizing, questioning, or acquiescing? You may be surprised by the hidden dynamics you uncover just by looking at the conversation as a data set. Do you ever feel an emotional shift after a digital conversation, either more anxious or strangely elated? That shift is a data point. Pay attention to it. Building a profile and gathering digital evidence is one thing, but to truly close the net, especially on the most cautious predators, the FBI has to go undercover. They have to enter the predator's world on the predator's terms. This means agents, grown men and women, have to convincingly portray themselves as vulnerable minors on platforms like Discord, Kik, or Roblox. It's some of the most psychologically taxing work in law enforcement. The goal isn't just to catch them saying something incriminating, it's to get them to act, to make a move to meet in the real world. That's when you can make the arrest. Operations like Overwatch and Restore Justice are massive, coordinated stings where dozens of these operations culminate at once, leading to hundreds of arrests in a matter of days. There's a critical element to this work that I call the credibility trap, and it's the hardest part of the job for the agent. It's not about using the right slang or emojis to sound like a teenager. The real challenge is mimicking the psychology of a vulnerable child without getting emotionally compromised yourself. Predators are masters at sniffing out inauthenticity. They don't just look for slips in language, they test for emotional responses. They will say something provocative, something designed to push a boundary, and watch the reaction closely. A real, insecure teenager might get defensive or confused, or try to change the subject. A law enforcement officer, trained to be in control, might react with too much composure. They might be too calm, too rational. That single tell can blow the entire operation. The agent has to convincingly perform vulnerability, to appear emotionally susceptible, while internally remaining a detached, analytical observer. I once consulted with a team preparing an agent for a deep undercover role. He was a tough, experienced officer. We didn't spend our time on teen slang. We spent it on his own childhood memories. We talked about what it felt like to be embarrassed, to feel left out, to desperately want approval. He had to be able to access those real emotions and channel them into his online persona. It's a dangerous psychological tightrope. You're living a lie for months, sometimes years. The person you're pretending to be is a target, someone being psychologically broken down. You have to absorb all that toxicity from the predator, day in and day out, while documenting it for evidence. The cognitive dissonance, holding those two conflicting identities of vulnerable victim and hardened agent in your mind, is immense. The burnout rate is high for a reason. Think of it like the highest stakes poker game you can imagine. You're not just bluffing with a pair of twos, you're bluffing with your entire identity. The predator across the table is an expert at reading people, and they are constantly probing, looking for any flicker of inauthenticity. Your job is to not only conceal your strength, but to project a weakness that is so convincing, so alluring, that they feel safe enough to push all their chips into the middle of the table. It's a chilling art form. Now, put yourself in a less extreme situation. Have you ever had to play a part to get through a difficult conversation or a tense family gathering? You put on a smile, you pretend everything is fine. How exhausting was that for just a few hours? Imagine doing it for a year, knowing that one wrong move could mean a violent criminal walks free. It gives you a new appreciation for what these agents endure to keep the rest of us safe. To truly understand how to protect yourself and your loved ones, you have to understand the predator's playbook. It's not random. It's a process, a methodical sequence of steps known as the grooming process. It's been refined over decades, long before the internet existed, but the digital world has made it infinitely more efficient. I'm going to walk you through the stages, not with a hypothetical child, but with a scenario that might hit closer to home for many of you. Let's invent a composite character, a woman named Brenda. She's 68, recently retired, and her husband passed away a few years ago. She's smart, capable, but lonely. Stage 1. Target selection. The predator finds Brenda in a Facebook group for gardening enthusiasts. He sees from her posts that she lives alone and frequently mentions feeling isolated. She is a perfect target. Stage 2. Trust building. He begins to engage. He doesn't come on strong. He comments on her photos of her roses, asks for advice about his own garden. He builds rapport around a shared interest. The conversations are innocent, friendly. He's just a nice, lonely man himself. This stage can last for weeks, even months. Stage 3. Filling a need. He listens. Brenda mentions she's worried about her finances. A few days later, he casually mentions he used to be a financial advisor and has helped lots of friends secure their retirement. He's not offering anything yet, he's just planting a seed, positioning himself as a solution to her declared problem. Stage 4. Isolation. This is the critical turning point. He starts to subtly poison her existing relationships. Your kids don't really appreciate how smart you are with money, do they? It sounds like your friends are holding you back. At the same time, he insists their own special friendship needs privacy. This is where off-platforming happens. He says, Facebook is so public. Let's move to WhatsApp, where we can talk more freely. It sounds reasonable, but his goal is to move her to a place with no witnesses. It is the digital equivalent of saying, let's step into this dark alley where no one can see or hear us. Stage 5. Sexualization. For Brenda's case, it's not sexual. The predator starts weaving in the financial opportunities. He creates a sense of exclusivity and urgency. This is something I only share with people I truly trust. He makes her feel special, chosen. Stage 6. Initiation and secrecy. He convinces her to make a small, test investment. It pays off. He might even send her a small return from his own pocket. This builds immense trust and makes her feel brilliant. Now, the requests get bigger and the secrecy becomes paramount. If you tell your kids, they'll just get jealous and try to stop you. This has to be our secret. Stage 7. Maintaining control. Now, Brenda is hooked. She's invested emotionally and financially. Even if she starts to have doubts, the shame of admitting she was fooled is often too great. The predator can now maintain control through a combination of intermittent affection and fear. Psychologically, this entire process is a direct parallel to the techniques used by cults to indoctrinate new members. You identify a vulnerable person, you shower them with affection and validation, you isolate them from their support network, you create an us versus them mentality, and you establish a system of control and dependency. It is a slow, methodical erosion of a person's identity and judgment. So, I ask you, has anyone ever tried to convince you that they are the only one who truly understands you? Has a friend or acquaintance ever encouraged you to keep secrets from your family or closest friends? Their reasons might sound compelling, but the act of encouraging secrecy is one of the biggest red flags there is. Sometimes, to truly grasp the scale and methodology of these predators, you have to look at a master of the craft. Let's talk about the case of Matthew Falder, one of the most prolific online predators the UK has ever seen. His case is a masterclass in digital behavioral analysis, and it perfectly illustrates the psychology that drives these individuals and ultimately leads to their downfall. Falder operated for years, accumulating hundreds of victims across the globe. He was meticulous, intelligent, and technologically savvy. He used the dark web, encrypted communications, and a web of false identities. He seemed like a ghost. His methods were pure psychological warfare. He would hack into his victims' accounts, steal their personal photos and information, and then use that material to blackmail and control them. He created fake online personas, sometimes pretending to be a supportive female friend, to gain their trust before revealing his true intentions. He preyed on their deepest insecurities, turning their own digital lives into a weapon against them. For 4 years, he was a phantom, his global network of victims living in terror. The international manhunt involved the FBI, Britain's national crime agency, and law enforcement from several other countries. It was a daunting task, trying to connect anonymous victims to a faceless tormentor. But here's where Falder's own psychology betrayed him. This is a concept I refer to as the trophy room fallacy. The most narcissistic and prolific predators share a fatal flaw. They cannot resist admiring their own work. They are driven by an ego that demands they document their successes. Like a serial killer keeping a souvenir from a victim, these digital predators meticulously save chat logs, images, and videos. They create a digital trophy room. Falder had an encyclopedic archive of his crimes, neatly organized. He wasn't just a predator, he was a collector. And this is the paradox. The very thing that feeds their ego, the collection of trophies, becomes the evidence that will convict them. They build their own prison, brick by digital brick, and the job of law enforcement is simply to find the key. From a psychological standpoint, this behavior is rooted in narcissistic personality disorder and compulsion. The narcissism creates the belief that they are smarter than everyone else and will never be caught. The compulsion drives them to repeat their ritualistic behavior, including the collection and cataloging of their exploits. They get a thrill not just from the crime itself, but from reliving it, from looking over their collection and marveling at their own power and cleverness. It's the same impulse that makes a cat bring a dead bird to the doorstep. It's a grotesque display, but it's an instinctual need to show off the kill. When investigators finally closed in on Falder, it wasn't a single brilliant hack that caught him. It was the slow, painstaking work of connecting victim accounts and following the digital trail back to him, a trail made infinitely richer by his own obsessive record-keeping. When they seized his computers, they found the entire history of his reign of terror. He had handed them his confession on a silver platter. So, let me ask you a question that gets to the heart of this. Why do you think people, from criminals to everyday individuals, feel such a strong need to document their lives and even their transgressions? Is it just arrogance and carelessness? Or is it a deeper, more human need to feel that their actions, for good or ill, have meaning and permanence. We've looked at the past and the present, but the battlefield is always changing. The next frontier in this fight is already here, and it's powered by artificial intelligence. Predators are early adopters of technology, and they are already using AI to create more sophisticated and convincing scams and attacks. This is a threat that will require an entirely new level of vigilance. The primary threat on the horizon is the use of AI for deepfakes and automated social engineering. Imagine this scenario. You get a video call. On the screen is your grandson. He looks exactly like himself, and he sounds exactly like himself. He's frantic. He says he's been arrested while on vacation, he's in a foreign jail, and he needs you to wire $5,000 to a lawyer immediately. He begs you not to tell his parents because he's so ashamed. It's an emotionally devastating situation, designed to trigger your instinct to protect your family and to act quickly without thinking. Except it's not him. It's a deep fake, a video created by an AI that has scraped images and audio of your grandson from his public social media profiles. This isn't science fiction, the technology exists right now. AI voice cloning, for example, requires only a few seconds of a person's audio to create a convincing replica of their voice. A public video, a voicemail. That's all a predator needs to then call you, sounding exactly like your loved one, spinning a tale of emergency. Our brains are not equipped to handle this. For millennia, our most fundamental trust mechanism has been recognizing the faces and voices of our tribe. AI exploits that biological wiring. It bypasses our rational thought process and hits us directly in the emotional core. We are evolutionarily primed to believe what we see and hear from those we love. The psychological concept at play here is the rapid shrinking of the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is that feeling of unease or revulsion we get when we see something that looks almost human, but not quite, like an old animatronic or a poorly rendered CGI character. For years, that's what deepfakes were like. You could just tell something was off. But AI is learning at an exponential rate, and it's climbing out of that valley. Soon, it will be impossible for the naked eye to distinguish a deepfake from reality. The FBI's cybersecurity priorities for 2025 and beyond are heavily focused on this. They're developing AI of their own to detect the subtle artifacts that deepfakes leave behind. They're pushing for stronger multi-factor authentication to secure accounts. But technology alone won't solve this. The solution will have to be human. It will require a new kind of digital literacy, where we learn to be skeptical even of what our own eyes and ears are telling us. So let me ask you, and be honest with yourself. If you received a frantic call like that from a loved one, what would be your first move? How confident are you that you could spot a fake, and what specific detail would be the giveaway for you? This is a question we all need to have an answer for. So we've dissected the predator, the technology, and the cases. We've looked into the dark corners. Now, let's talk about turning on the lights. All of this knowledge is useless if it only serves to make you more afraid. Its true purpose is to empower you to act, to protect yourself and the people you care about. The most powerful weapon against grooming and online exploitation is not a piece of software, it's a conversation. It's trust. I want to tell you one last story. Not about a predator who succeeded, but about one who failed. A teenager, let's call him Alex, was being drawn in by an older individual in an online gaming community. It followed the classic pattern: shared interest, flattery, building trust, and then the slow pivot towards secrecy and inappropriate requests. But this family had one simple rule: no secrets about people you meet online. The parents didn't demand Alex's passwords or read his messages behind his back. Instead, they took a genuine interest in his hobbies. His dad would ask him to show him the game he was playing, not as an interrogation, but with real curiosity. Show me how this works. Who are the best players? Who do you talk to on here? He built a bridge of communication. So, when this new online friend started asking Alex to keep their conversation secret, it immediately felt wrong to him. It violated the family's culture of openness. Alex felt comfortable enough to go to his dad and say, "There's this guy who's being kind of weird." That was it. That simple sentence, spoken without fear of punishment, ended the predator's entire operation before it could even get to the isolation stage. The psychological principle here is what's known as psychological safety. It's the belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Predators thrive in environments of fear and secrecy. They depend on their victims being too scared or too ashamed to tell anyone. When you create a family dynamic where there is psychological safety, where a child or even another adult knows they can come to you with anything, no matter how strange or embarrassing, without being judged, you build an impenetrable wall that a predator cannot breach. They might as well be shouting into the void. The practical application of this is to shift your approach from suspicion to curiosity. Instead of demanding to see your grandchild's phone, sit down with them and ask them to show you their favorite new app. Let them teach you. By entering their world with respect and interest, you are not only learning about the platforms they use, but you are reinforcing the idea that you are a safe person to talk to. The best parental controls are not on a device, they are in the relationship you build. So, what can you do? First, educate yourself. Understand the basic privacy settings on major social media apps. Second, have open conversations. Talk about online safety not as a scary lecture, but as a practical part of modern life, like looking both ways before you cross the street. And finally, foster that psychological safety. Let your loved ones know, through your actions and your words, that your door is always open. So, my final question to you is this. What is one conversation you can have with someone you care about this week, a child, a grandchild, a friend, that will open that door just a little bit wider?